Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Welcome to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 195th iteration of the show, recorded on the 29th of May, 2016. My name is Josh Levin. With me, as always, is
co-host extraordinaire Ryan Kirkby.
Ryan, hey, well, we're doing another one of these.
Yeah, you'd almost think it's a regular habit now after like 3.5 years.
How you doing?
Pretty good, doing better than I was earlier this week. Yeah. I had a little fear I might not be able to do a full podcast with the hoarse voice I had earlier this week. But it's kind of mellowed out and my throat is no longer on fire. Like there are some times I had to leave work and just felt my neck and it's like, oh my goodness, that thing, you could bake an egg on that one.
Bake an egg on your throat and then serve it to...
Well, I eat it myself. I'm sick. I need the nutrients and protein.
All right.
I'm not giving away a baked egg to anyone except maybe my family members.
Also, do you bake eggs?
Well, you could fry an egg, but then it would have to be like you crack the egg out and but yeah, you can bake eggs.
I guess
I imagine
you can bake soufflés.
What's the thing? In my mind, I just imagined myself putting the egg on my throat and then just kind of like leaning forward so that, I was kind of holding it, with my chin.
Okay.
So effectively it would have been baked by the heat.
Baked egg. Sounds good.
It doesn't sound unhealthy, I'll say that. But yes, we have 2 news stories this week. Let's see which one to go with first. I will start with the sad one, I suppose. The TV series The Muppets is apparently not being renewed for a second season.
So it was just called The Muppets? Like that was...
Yeah, The Muppets. Yeah. It was kind of like an Office sort of style sort of thing where they're doing like a production on Miss Piggy's late night television show program, where they do like little camera like cuts where they go into like talking to the camera, candidly sort of thing.
Oh yeah, honestly, I feel bad because I feel I didn't watch a single episode.
I was trying to watch it myself. But Supergirl was in the way, and it's like, oh, darn, I already kind of committed to Supergirl. And then I found, like, the TV on demand that Shaw had, so I was able to watch stuff, and actually get to, I caught up from what I could on it. And then it's like, oh, no, there's no more.
Well.
Which is a shame, because everything I saw, this was premium quality Muppet stuff going on here. Because it was a bit like later night, not like oh hey, this is for the kids as soon as they get home from school sort of thing. They were able to work with I won't say mature as in like, oh boy, here's naked Miss Piggy, but they did however feature the fact that she, instead of having like a nip slip on the carpet, she had a pigtail slip. And the whole bit about showing off your pigtail was seen as very risque. And you can't show that on television. How indecent to show off your pigtail. Right. And so they were able to utilize it as an allegory for an exposed breast. Which I found to be very entertaining. And it kept things classy. Because it could have just been like, oh no, there's a boob. It's like, no. That's
the Muppets for you, always classy. Classing it up with the Muppets.
Thing is they try not to work too blue. And so they could make it all as unseemly as having, like a body part exposed. But in this case, it's a body part you and I wouldn't even think of because we don't have one. Like, it's okay to show most tails, apparently, on TV in the Muppet world, but not a pigtail. It's seen as gross. And so they were able to show the dichotomy of how everything works and how unfair it is for one to be okay, which would parallel with
the real world audience see the pigtail slip or no?
Apparently yes.
Oh, okay.
But yes, you have
to YouTube that.
Well, see, this would be like the equivalent of a man being topless and walking around versus a female. So you could like Instagram is apparently
man versus female.
Well, it's the thing is like Instagram and Facebook and all that. If you show a female breast on there, by golly, they will get rid of that photo forever. But if you got yourself some topless, guys wandering around on the beach and you take some shots of that, well, no one's going to, say, oh, you got to take this down, it's indecent. And so they were able to use the pigtail versus other creatures' tails as to show the dichotomy between, male and female.
Social commentary.
And it was very well done. And that's why I'm so unhappy that they wound up not renewing it for a second season. So darn you, CBS. I think it was CBS.
I liked when the Muppets, they probably are still doing some of these, but they did a whole bunch of web shorts. Those seem to have really worked well.
They're quite nice, but they don't exactly get you the same revenue. They do keep your profile up, so it's effectively good advertising usage.
Okay.
But combined the little web shorts that they did would work perfectly as a dual-pronged, attention getter to help funnel the viewing audience over to their TV show. So it would have been nice to have seen more of those sorts of things. I do know My Little Pony does stuff like that. For each movie they release out in their Equestria Girls series, they have little songs and stuff and little tiny adventure things. My daughter goes absolutely nuts and loves them and wants to watch them over and over again. And so it really keeps her interest high when there are other things to, steal her 3-year-old attention span away elsewhere. So it helps bring her back in time and again. She wants to, I want to hear that pony song, Dad. Well, okay, here it is. And then next thing you know, we wind up, the next day, having one of the movies on the TV. So it works very well in that regard. And I'd like to see more TV series doing that sort of thing. Muppets, ponies, anything I think could benefit from having that. Here's a little something extra done over here. I know the original Heroes series had a thing where you watch your episode and then you go online, and over at the website, they've got, hey, here's a free, a web comic book for you to read.
Yeah. Well, that's I suppose how you do it, and that's what we should be doing with the podcast, I suppose, or something.
Yeah. Take your own medicine, doctor. Okay, fair enough. I think you've convinced me. We've got to do some extra work on that.
Or I don't know.
But it occurs to me, we are living in the future where there's 500 channels to watch. And there's no room for the Muppets in these 500 channels?
Well, no. I mean, they tried to put it on one of the, I don't know, is there such thing as a main channel anymore? This is what used
CBS.
To be, it used to be a big network.
One of the big three sort of things, right?
Yeah, so.
CBS, ABC, and NBC.
They might have actually fared better if they'd just gone with TBS or even the Cartoon Network.
They are owned by the House of Mouse. This is Muppets are owned by Disney.
Oh yeah, okay. Disney wants to keep it all in the family because Disney also owns. But doesn't Disney own ABC?
Disney owns a lot.
I guess I don't know. I don't know what.
To figure out all the stuff Disney owns, you're going to have to go to the Wikipedia and do a lot of reading. They own quite a.
But they're associated, I believe, with one of those big 3 networks.
But here's the thing: right now, thanks to Shaw Cable, we have a free channel for. I don't know. Maybe it's just to the end of this month. Maybe we get it for a full month, starting a certain period. I don't know, but it is the Disney Junior channel, and my daughter she's responding so well to this.
Oh yeah.
And so it's kids shows, not like really young kid shows. This isn't like Tinky Winky and the other Teletubbies sort of thing. This is more towards the Dora the Explorer age sort of group where you have the interaction, talk, and you learn. And Disney, you own the Muppets. Is there not room for a little bit of Muppets in your Disney Junior channel? Come on. You can't do that? You can't slip some stuff in there?
So there's no, besides Sesame Street, are there no children's Muppets programs?
That's the thing is the actual live action Muppets are even getting phased out of Sesame Street.
Oh yeah.
Sad as it is to say, but there is a Doozers program which is owned separate, the Doozers from the Fraggle Rock series.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a spin-off and it's now Doozers, but that's all CGI. And then you go over to the Muppets, you see what's going on. Ernie and Bert have a reoccurring thing where they have dream adventures. Forget the symbology of what happens when I say that late at night there's a rocking around on Bert's bed, and Ernie, hops out of his bed and jumps into Bert's, and they have wild, fantastic adventures together in Bert's bed. Like the bed takes off and they do kind of like a little Nemo thing, and then they go off doing dream things. But that's CGI. The new Muppet, Abby Cadabby, she is a magical fairy Muppet. She's supposed to represent another culture, without actually being any one particular other culture. That way
Arab.
Well, that's the thing, is she can represent any other culture, sort of thing. Is she's just like, oh, my family has different customs than, say, you, Oscar, or you, Elmo. Mostly Elmo.
Yeah, she's Muslim.
Well, she could be anything. You could utilize it.
Really?
Well, no, that's the thing. It's like they had a thing in one of the bits I was watching called Hinking Day, where they've got trolls. And so they got Hinking Day, and the way it's set up, it seems very Yiddish, very Hebraic. So it can wind up representing like any culture that isn't, I suppose, like Anglo-Saxon Protestant style. So if you're not a WASP, it's like you're Abby Cadabby culture. And that's all CGI.
Well, I mean, when I say, I guess, I say Muslim or Arab, as if those are like completely, that tells
one,
you what.
single cohesive thing there.
Those in themselves are two very diverse, or, contain a lot of multitudes.
That is a very, wide brushstroke you just painted there. Yeah. But that's all CGI for her adventures going on in her flying fairy school. And so they're very much phasing out the live-action Muppet stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Or relegating them out to simple things like every episode of Sesame Street, the Count presents a number, and they all do a Transylvanian stomp dance. But it's really a kind of a donut thing, where he comes in, he sings the same thing, and then here's the number, and then they stomp so many times, and then they go back, and then they're doing their dance. And the only thing that changes is the number and the stomp, and then that's why I call it a donut. It's got an empty hole in the center you can fill, and then it's the same thing on the outside.
Yeah, okay. You call it that?
No, that is an actual term for those sorts of things.
Okay.
It's called donut commercials or donut ads. And so they really minimize the effect and usage of Muppets. So it seems that
do you think it's the same sort of? I guess generations come and go as far as artists, but do you think it's the same sort of track of people who are sort of specialized in? They used to do things like the Dark Crystal and Star Wars, and these were puppeteers. But they're also Weta workshops, creature makers, and stuff like that.
They did a lot of world building.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of track of person has just simply more evolved into the CGI end of things? Just that
CGI, I suppose, is easier for a number of things, but unless you're okay with having all your actors walk around on a green screen, you should be doing something in the background. And the Muppet people weren't just making those Muppets; they were building the world. Like the Dark Crystal stuff, there's a lot. You look at Dark Crystal and would be Labyrinth. A lot of the stuff in the background there was done by the same people to help build the world around it. And so that, have you heard the challenges of working in front of a green screen?
I've heard it expressed. I'm not entirely convinced that it's this impossible task.
It does make it more challenging, though.
I believe that, yeah. I've always thought that if you take a little bit extra, maybe it's just a transition. It's just culturally we need to make movies in this way and realize that we need to give our actors a little bit more prompting rather than just say shove them in front of the green screen and say, okay, giant monster there, your buddy's over there, he's represented by a tennis ball, okay, act, rather than sort of give them a little bit more, feed them more, which I think is probably the part of the reason why you get poor performances. Not that it's not just because it's a green screen, but because they're just shoved into this place and not given the correct direction.
Contextual cues.
And not given... The other thing is actors, over time, they develop their own set of skills and their own ability to cope and react to situations. And it's just that, they're used to working a certain way, and then eventually they will adapt to sort of these green screens and stuff. But when they're thrown in... Like an Ian McKellen is thrown into a hobbit hole and told to, okay, react to this room full of dwarves that aren't actually here. He's like, okay, this is impossible. but that's simply a matter of him catching up, because he is a professional. He's good at what he does, and he will get it. But it's like really stressful in that moment, because it's like, oh, I haven't done this before, and how do I, I have to create this whole method of how I react.
Which is good with stuff like the Jurassic Park series. It was always done best in that it wasn't always CGI. Some things were done with the animatronics, and it's good to tell, like when you're going to want one style over the other. So that way, if you're doing the close-up shots, you're going to want to make sure it's the animatronics, and you're going to be able to get those very visceral reactions from the people. It's like, oh God, his eyes dilated, he can see me, versus, and then there's a T-Rex running behind you. It's like, we don't need an animatronic T-Rex that actually runs, we'll just CGI that.
Yeah, and I feel like on the artist's side of things, but I mean, I'm not not this kind of artist myself, but I get the feeling that they actually are quite enthusiastic about CGI, because there are things.
There's a lot you can do, and it will be a lot easier and a lot more.
Well, you say easier, but
smooth.
It's also just the case that you can't. There's some things that are simply impossible to do without CGI.
Although they always tried to figure out how to make that happen. There was even that one scene in the Labyrinth movie where the two walls come together and it winds up like, oh no, and it forms the giant, like a defensive thing with a giant axe that's swinging around. Mm-hmm. That came about from the little Bluto character, Bruto sad, like the rock howler guy. Mm-hmm. Was they remarking, this is, I think, the largest Muppet we've ever made. Yeah. Do you think we can make anything larger? I don't know. That might not be possible. Let's find out. And then, like the true mad scientists they decided to create the biggest Muppet they could. And that wound up working itself into an entire scene there.
I like where you're going with this, because what I like about Muppets is it's theatrical, and it feels like something you'd put on in a play. It feels like something, because they do what Warhorse and the Dinosaurs play and things like that. They do animatronics. A lot of that has sort of moved over into the live action.
Yeah, it's either that or you actually have like a horse on stage, which represents an insurance nightmare as well as liability issues.
I think it's been done, and like it.
Yeah, well, of course, they've been able to do it, but that doesn't fit for every stage everywhere. An animatronic horse, or even like a Muppet-style horse, to let people know where the horse is and how it works, can be a lot easier, especially when you're going on like a road production, take it for so many cities. And if you actually bring a real horse with you.
If you have a puppet horse, you know exactly where it's going to go, and you don't have to worry about training it or it getting frightened or anything like that.
Just keep those Muppeteers in line.
I remember a little tangent. I wasn't in a play. I was in a Christmas play, but this wasn't one that I was in. My grandparents used to go to a church in Kamloops that had like a very fancy Passion play put on every Easter, and we didn't go every year, but we used to, a few years in a row we did catch that Easter play. But they, like, the big production in that play was, well, they did the whole thing with crucifying Jesus on stage. It was a little bit,
not actually,
I mean, yeah, crucifying a guy, and they had like fake blood and everything, and like they had like whip tubes that were like, I guess they were like rubber hosing that were filled with fake blood, and then they whipped the guy, and then the blood would, so it looked like he got cut by the whip.
That's pretty good.
I guess it's kind of cool, actually. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's fun to see the different ways. I mean, I remember seeing some plays where instead of utilizing any actual fake blood, they have red streamer ribbons, and then they just throw a ribbon whenever you're bleeding. That shows like an arterial spurt of blood. And like, I suppose it makes it a lot easier to clean the stage afterwards. And yet it does have that extra theatrical flair of throwing a ribbon in the air. And, that's my blood.
But I remember the biggest deal being, for me and my brother, the most exciting thing was they had an actual donkey. I think it was just one donkey. They didn't have any other animals. But yeah, Jesus rode in on a donkey through the church, because it was a pretty big church. But yeah, down the aisle of the church on a donkey.
A real donkey.
He gets off the donkey and does his thing, whatever. But yeah, it was like, holy crap, it's a donkey. It's a real donkey. They brought it in the church.
That's the thing, is the real presence there adds the extra oomph to it.
I think so.
Which is why, can you imagine if they had done Little Shop of Horrors, without doing the Jim Henson Muppet crew, and then just having like a CGI, Audrey 2 there?
Well, it would be a very different movie. It would be more. It would feel more serious, I guess.
Would have made things a lot easier for the actors because they couldn't get the plant at the speed that they wanted. So anytime the creature is there and moving and speaking, everyone else has to be moving at 1/4 speed because then they'd speed up the tape later on.
Yeah.
And you can actually see that
that
during some of the songs. Seymour, is played by the wonderful actor Rick Moranis. He's moving rather slowly, and if you're paying attention to how he walks, it's not quite like how he should be walking. It's like how a person would be walking if they were walking extra slow.
And then sped up artificially.
And then sped up, yeah. Which is weird that you can tell the difference. Like there's a part of your brain that decided, yeah, I need to tell the difference between this every time I see it happening.
Well, you can tell it's weird.
It's like, the hand motions are a little weird. Like when he's coming to rest, it's coming to rest too quickly. So all those little subtle, non-conscious movements are still happening at about regular speed.
Yeah, it's part of that uncanny valley where it's just a little bit upsetting, which is kind of good for a creepy movie.
Yeah, you watch a Ju-On or The Grudge or anything like that, and you got the creepy evil girl moving around, and they'll speed up and then regular speed, speed up regular speed, and so you can tell that things aren't moving quite right, and you get that I suddenly moved way too quickly. That shouldn't be right at all. Yeah. And that helps put you off of you're like, I'm just watching movies this is not right. This is not right. My eyes are interpreting this as being unnatural.
So yeah, I was going to say the fun thing about the original Muppets. I don't know about the original, but the Muppet show that was big in the 70s and 80s,
Muppet Theater.
Muppet Theater was that it was presented as if it was in a theater, and it was presented in this sort of spirit of, even though it wasn't actually live performance, it was this spirit of we're actually people, we're people working with puppets. So it's a little bit less we're trying to fool you into thinking that you're actually in the world of the Muppets. And that's what's different about a CGI thing is they try to actually think, these are real dinosaurs.
But that's the thing. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne interacts with the Muppets. What's her face? The lady who played Supergirl from the movie interacts with the Muppets as though they're real people. But instead of it being a standard split, Muppets are just a group of people the same way you and I are a subset of a group of people. It was just everyone's a Muppet, and then here's your star that just happens to be a human being. No one questions anything.
Yeah, well...
So maybe it works a little better if you have the extra Muppets, extra heavy on the Muppet and extra light on the humans.
Yeah, it might be.
So you only ever bring in a human when you need to have it be a human.
Yeah, well,
But man, oh man, even 2 more seasons would have been just absolutely boss, because they were getting a lot of celebrity stars there, and I would have absolutely loved to have seen some combinations worked up together. Gordon Ramsay and the Swedish Chef working together. You cannot tell me that does not write itself.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I don't know. I've done one acting job ever in my for a web series, which I will now say that I'm an actor. So
plug it.
Well, it's not out yet, but I was James, the brother of Jesus. I think I mentioned it before.
Yes.
Yeah.
But plug it again.
Well, it doesn't have a name yet either. It's probably sitting on someone's computer just waiting to be edited. But it was just that amount of I was surprised by how much work it actually is to do. I think it's going to be 5 minutes. It's really going to be this short thing. But we were there. We did 1 day of shooting. Some of the other bits they had to do another day. But my bit was, I'm probably on screen, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes. I'm with a big group of people. That makes it tougher too. But that was a fairly small scale scene. As ended up being about 8 disciples. So, compare that to a show that's got dozens of Muppets plus stars and
And that's the thing. You got your different styles of Muppets. You got your Muppet with the one hand sort of thing, and you got a Muppet with the the one hand, and you need to use the other hand for sticks to move their arms, and then you got the bigger guys like the Swedish Chef, where you got the one person's hand to move the head, and then you got another person to be his actual hands there. So it's a two-person thing, and then you got your Sweetums level sort of thing, where it's a person inside a Muppet suit.
Yeah, and we were boiling hot just in, like, basically robes, and we were stuffed into this. Well, it was probably as big as this, but it felt very small with all the equipment and tables and people and cameras and everything in it. So it's about as big as your apartment, but it felt a lot.
It's not the biggest
smaller.
apartment, I'll tell for those out there who haven't seen it.
And it got very hot. So you can imagine how hot it would get for people who have like big furry suits and like stick your hand in this furry thing for
with the lights
hours
shining
at a
on
time.
top of you.
Yeah.
You're working next to two other guys, as you got to be the one Muppet sort of thing there.
So yeah, I imagine I'm sure they love it. Like it's a job that you get and you love.
And see, that's why I'm okay with them retiring some of the more classic Muppets.
Oh yeah.
I believe the guy who plays Big Bird is just about into his 90s now.
Oh yeah.
And just gotta get almost in his 90s, he's got to be in the Big Bird suit for these shoots. It's like, oh, maybe we should just kind of retire the bird and make sure he has a nice, easy, retirement sort of thing. He doesn't have to stick around till the final day sweating it out in a bird suit.
Like retire the whole character, you mean?
Sadly, I think so. I mean, as much as I love the Muppet, I grew up on them. As much as I love them individually and as a whole, I understand the need to retire them because there are certain actors, who do it, and people who do the voice. Frank Oz is not going to be around forever, just like Jim Henson was not around forever. And I will miss Kermit the Frog if they decide to retire him, and I will miss him so very dearly, along with Ernie and all the other voices he did. But it's not quite the same, and it's not. Well, I mean, the voices aren't the same, and the character just isn't quite it. It's not 100%. They get towards the 90-95 percentile, but it's not the same thing.
But that should be close enough for new viewers. Like new viewers won't know the difference.
But do you need to train new viewers with the new with the old Muppets?
I guess you could make a new Muppet.
Yeah.
But
Elmo was a Muppet for okay, go out there and Google "Me Lost Me Cookie on the Dance Floor" over in the YouTube section. It was back in the 70s, and it was a disco song that was singing with Cookie Monster. Mm-hmm. Now, as I said, disco, 70s song. In the background, on the disco floor, you will see Elmo. Elmo was a background Muppet for decades.
Oh, yeah.
And the few times he spoke before he became Elmo, his actual named monster, he had more of a deep voice to, offset his tiny size, because, that's different, right? Hmm. And it wasn't until the one guy decided, I'm going to use a nice little high-pitched key. I'm not even going to try an Elmo voice. Not with my throat like it is now. But until he used the Elmo voice, that Elmo became a character. So you can, ascend, these background Muppets up to a regular character thing. And that's perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. I mean, I hold no ill will against that little, Elmo stealing all the spotlight, because he fills a role and he helps replace the old Muppets as they retire. I don't want to force Frank Oz to work himself to the grave being Muppet voices. And if that means having to retire Miss Piggy, so be it. It means he's retiring Grover, so be it.
Well, you're not even considering letting another person take over.
Do they need to take over? Couldn't you have another sort of character? Does it always need to forever be Miss Piggy in that role?
I don't know if it has to be Miss Piggy in particular, but there are characters, like people come back to the Muppets. There are sort of beloved characters that feel like, this is iconic to the Muppets.
I'm one of the people that loves the Muppets, man. Yeah. I love them dearly. But I don't want the actors to have to work until they're dead, and
they don't have to,
and then just be replaced like an old, like one of those old raggedy style, Muppet skins, and they get a new Muppet, and then when they're, when the actor dies, they get a new actor. So it's just like the old bit about the woodcutter's axe. The head's been replaced 5 times, and the handle's been replaced 7, but it's the same axe it always was.
Well, yeah, maybe you're right. Okay,
couldn't you have like a character fulfill, like a new Muppet fulfill the same sort of niche that was, describe Miss Piggy in a few words.
A pig.
She's vain. She's a glamorous. She's kick butt. Her hi-yas will send anyone flying across the stage.
Yeah. Okay.
You could replace another person with a Miss Piggy. You don't need to have it be a
Miss
another
Piggy. Archetype.
You could put it. I don't know. Pick another barnyard animal. Let's just send one of Gonzo's chickens. Make sure it actually speaks and does stuff.
Like a talking chicken?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, hang on.
A cow. Have some fun with it, man.
Okay, I'm with you in sort of branching out and trying new things, but you also have to remember, often new characters don't always work, and they sometimes fall flat or people hate them and be like, oh, okay, well that didn't really work. So
I am
back
a little
to the drawing
sometimes
board.
peeved at Elmo with all the shelf space he's taking.
And it is a bit of design work to sort of create that new. It's fun. I like it, but also at the same time.
If they had a build a Muppet place instead of a build a bear, that place would not have left the Mayfair Mall. There'd be people making their own Muppets there till closing time.
Yeah, but it's very hard to build sort of an icon. Like, well, what is your next big icon? What is your next big Miss Piggy? And you don't want, because Miss Piggy it contains a few negative stereotypes about women. Sort of
she's vain and glamorous and shallow.
Yeah. But it's okay because she's basically a cartoon.
In the negative context of she's like trying to steal the limelight sort of thing.
Yeah, she's like a diva, an actress.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
but that's the thing is like after a while, don't you wind up like running the risk of Flanderization, where it's like, what are her personality traits? I remember her doing this, and so you keep doing it, and more and more until they become like they're her soul traits, and she's not quite so nuanced.
Yeah, and then an old character like if that were to happen to Miss Piggy, I don't know if it did or not. I won't say whether it happened or not. But an old character like Miss Piggy can become less popular over time, and can become we don't know what else to do with her, so okay, we'll retire. But at the same time, it's easy. It's in some ways it's easier if you're creating a new property, like they were creating the new Muppet show.
Next, Elmo.
It's easier to sort of grab something that people will already recognize. That okay, at least we'll get a chunk of audience, or maybe they didn't, but maybe it didn't work out. But we'll get a chunk of audience just because people say, "Oh, that's Miss Piggy. Here's a new story about a character that I already kind of recognize and know a little bit about." This is the whole thing why we use old characters, why we do sequels, and why we use stuff that's already been done before.
What
it's
if
proven.
we were to make the Muppets more like, say, Saturday Night Live, which is ironic given that Jim Henson kind of bombed out of Saturday Night Live towards the first seasons and all that. But what if it was to be more like that, whereas in the people who do the Muppet stuff make their own Muppet character. When they leave, they retire it. Someone new comes in. So that way you get that fresh flow of ideas and styles and differences. And then instead of keeping like the original Muppets, which would represent like the Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd era, and force them to be the prime Muppets all the time, like where's that second wave of Muppets, the second golden era where you get your Norm Macdonald and Adam Sandler sort of stuff?
Well, here's what
Chris Farley, David Spade, all the wonderful second hits.
What I may be wrong about this, but my feeling of sort of the essence of certain Muppets is that they're sort of, yes, they're very tied to Frank Oz and Jim Henson, but at the same time, they also, in a way, they become, because they're a puppet and because they're the human being behind them is hidden. That Muppet becomes something more than all the people, and also it's not just one person. The one person does the voice, but often it's two or three people.
Yes. As I said, with some of the larger Muppets, it can be a multiple person operation easily.
A Muppet character is like a spirit. It's like this thing that's greater than any one artist who puts into it, and therefore it shouldn't have to die just because one member of that team died. The voice being a very important part of it, but still. It's a thing that they created that ought to transcend them in some ways. And maybe I don't know.
Fair enough.
And like the other thing is, like, I'm not against what you're saying about Muppets should maybe be allowed to sort of fade away or die or whatever. I think in some ways this will just happen organically. It's because every time they do a new episode, they have to sort of pick who they're going to focus on, and every once in a while they will try and bring in a new character, and you can't necessarily have every single Muppet ever made be on every single Muppet show. So some are going to get more time than others, and some will just sort of fade away. Rather than have a spectacular send-off, just have them sort of fade in the background. Oh, there's Big Bird, but he's sort of just hanging around now. We're focused on these other guys.
Like, you could still have, like, Big Bird and Ernie in, like, the books and stories and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't actually need their voice. You just need to draw them. So you could still have them remain, and keep the marketability of them while introducing the new ones. Whether or not they work, I won't lie. That Murray Muppet, I'm not fond of.
Murray, is that in the movie?
No, it's in the Sesame Street. Murray had a little lamb. Like, he's a Muppet called Murray that goes out and, like, talks with kids and, like, learns things.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in on the street. He never says, like, goodbye. He's like, peace. And I'm like,
he's the urban Muppet?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, I like the lamb. I mean, like the lamb is in Espanol and sort of thing, and it has like a one wacky character. Like, it's a smaller Muppet, so if they want, like, they can come flying in, and then they just like whip like a little like fake Muppet like into him and knocks him down, and then the person doing like the La Majita thing comes on up. Oh, Murray. And so that way you get the fun sight gags, which they are well known for in the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
And that character effectively can winds up replacing a lot of the aspects of the old Prairie Dawn character. But this Murray guy, I don't know. He ain't hit it off with me yet.
You don't trust him.
I don't know. But I'm happy that at least they're trying something new. So it's not the same Muppets forever.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like the Muppets have always sort of been somewhat, experimental, and they've always had Muppets sort of in the background. They're like, oh, we need a new character for this, and that's, you were saying how Elmo came about, so I feel like this is part of the tradition of Muppetry.
Well, the thing is, it makes me wonder a bit if it really is a tradition, or maybe it's just holding on to nostalgia. I don't see the older folks lamenting, like, where's the Howdy Doody? How come they're not doing any more? I could do more Howdy Doody at any time. It shouldn't be too hard and too expensive to produce.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's something to be said about just letting the whole thing effectively fade away. It was part of its era, and it was this wonderful thing, and we shouldn't keep trying to force it back.
Well, I mean, I like to see Muppets sort of resurge every once in a while. And like it wasn't Muppets, but Avenue Q came and went, or I don't know if it's still
around, still doing stuff.
Touring or something. And we had the web shorts. They tried that, and I think other people are someone's probably gonna come up with another YouTube series. Maybe Muppets. Maybe they're just a generic, their own brand or something like that. More puppets. Nuppets,
but not Muppets.
Well, yeah, you can't do that. But it just requires sort of a creative idea, and I'm like, that's how art, I think, works. Like, you can't just sort of sustain a property just year after year after year doing the same thing over and over again. I think it's more like, it popped up, and here's an idea. Well, that kind of worked, or people loved it for a while, and then okay, we're done with that. Pops up again. Same with, like, we talk about genres, like, the Western is back, and then it goes away for a little while. Then, another Western, and now we're doing Westerns again, and then okay, it goes away. So like that. So.
Which, by the way, I've been told the next movie for Wolverine, the final one with Hugh Jackman, is going to be like a Western theme sort of thing going on.
Oh yeah, and like comic book movies are big right now, but they probably
will. Can they last until 2020 when the last of their the wave?
I have a feeling like we're on a pretty big wave, but yeah, at some point maybe it might be decades in the future, but I think or it'll get eclipsed by something even bigger.
The Western.
The Western returns.
In which case, Jonah Hex is back in the spotlight. Oh, yeah.
But I'll say, like, just personally, my own aesthetic right now is I'm really into sort of real, authentic theatrical style, like improv theater and stand-up.
Which Muppets can do very well for in both situations.
Well, exactly, because
so you can qualify them as, I guess, maybe a subgenre. So it'd be like Muppet stand-up.
I'd like to. I mean, we have Jeff Dunham does puppets. I guess he's is he a ventriloquist?
He's a ventriloquist that has a set thing on there. It's not exactly improv.
Yeah.
But I won't lie.
It's stand-up. Well, it's ventriloquism. He's a ventriloquist.
I won't lie. Seeing Oscar the Grouch on Whose Line Is It Anyways? I mean, you could.
Did that happen?
No.
Oh.
But you wouldn't be able to knock the smile off my face for 2 days, man. How could that be anything other than awesome, right?
Every once in a while, yeah, the Muppets show up on like a TV show like The Tonight Show or...
The Colbert Show had a few occasional appearances with Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
Who is, by the way, on right now doing a commercial with Siri for the hands-free stuff because he's cooking. So he's got like dirty hands. So Siri, please set timer.
Oh yeah. Actually, yeah, commercials are another great place for sort of Muppets.
That's kind of where they started for the Muppets, so I can definitely see them popping back in.
They can come and go. Like somebody decides, oh yeah, we're gonna do a series of commercials with the Muppets. So
if we had the money to do commercials for the Simulationist, I would love to be able to get a Muppet happening.
Yeah.
I don't think it will happen, but there's no way I'd be turning it down. But going back though to the main point is this Muppet show lasted one season, a good season, but only one season.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to '95, and then they had the Muppets Tonight. That only lasted 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then you have to go all the way back to the original Muppet series, and that's 3 seasons since the original Muppet series, got canceled or ended, however you want to look at it. That's 3 seasons across many decades. It's like, heck, let's just work with the Muppets Tonight. It was in the 90s, and it got 2 seasons, and then we got 1 season now. That's like less than 1 season per decade, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
We can only get 1 season of a Muppet show per 10 years, and yet it seems that if you look at something like Scooby-Doo, they've been going around for 40 years, and they've been producing stuff for about half that, so you get like a Scooby-Doo series about every other year, on average.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more room for Scooby-Doo than there is for Kermit the Frog?
I have no idea.
Is there really not enough room out there in our culture for Muppets other than occasional, there's still the movies, I suppose. Every couple of years a movie.
Well, and at this point also, if you really can't get enough Muppets, if you bought every single thing, like all the Muppet seasons on DVD, Muppets Tonight, and this latest Muppet series, I think you're good for a while. And plus all the movies, you can watch all those back to back and probably last you. I don't know how long. Well, if you binge it.
Well, yeah, if you binge it, it'll probably take you a couple of days. But if you want to savor it out, you could definitely make it last a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So that's the other thing people talk about, like when a TV show thinks about coming back.
And Muppet Babies.
Yeah, you can, and Muppet Babies.
In that case, with Muppet Babies counting in there, it is a little bit better than once a decade.
And if you include anything attached to Jim Henson, I mean, even throw Star Wars in there.
This is the Storyteller series was amazing and should have lasted 10 times longer than it did.
Yeah.
But apparently the production values were too high, despite the fact it was boss. If you've never seen it, watch it. Watch it all. Find it illegally. I don't care how. Watch it. It's good classic storytelling done with the Muppets style, and it's good. Yeah. It's so good.
But this is what they talk about when they think about bringing back an old series. Is like do we want to bring back, keep on going this old series, or just run the first season in syndication? Like this is what TV stations will often do is, well, we have 500 episodes of this. Why would we need any more?
There's 4 hours of roly-poly-oly on the Disney Junior every day. You can't drop one of those for a little bit of classic Muppets. There's not room for 30 minutes of Muppets.
Are you asking for just old episodes to re-air?
Yeah. Because it's not like they're doing much for some of these series.
Well,
they're not quite as classically syndicated, but they are there.
I mean, you might have a point. I mean, we could call up the executives of those cable channels and ask them about it. But at the same time, cable.
I'm tempted. Don't get me wrong. I'm tempted to try and get a hold of them and ask why no room.
Well, the thing is, though, cable is being threatened by streaming services such as Netflix and Crave TV and others, and also just DVDs.
Couldn't they strategically
and illegal downloading even. I mean, talk about that.
It's so hard to find a copy of Jim Henson's A Storyteller.
Well, I know it's hard, but at some point
you can find a legal copy, get it any which way you can.
Yeah. Okay.
If they're not going to make it easy, make it easy for yourself.
I suppose you have a point for now, but I think going forward,
as time goes on, it will get easier to get a hold of it legally.
Yeah. And I think cable companies are I don't know how relevant they're going to be.
But couldn't you put it strategically on the channel? Like, how many kids are watching Disney Junior at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 11? Like, this station goes on 24 hours a day. Couldn't you put the classic old stuff in? So it's like, okay, the kid's asleep. I just want to lay down and just relax. Oh, the Muppets are on. I remember them from when I was a kid. Forget the kid watching their shows. I'll watch my kids' shows on this nice kid channel. Well, that's good.
Maybe, but I feel like the feeling would be that grown-ups would be tempted to just watch other channels.
And pass up the Muppets if they were on TV.
You might watch it. I think that's
that would
possible.
be heavily selected my viewing potentials. I'll say that.
And
if it wasn't for something like the only reason I didn't watch the Muppets when they were airing on the TV was because I had already committed to Supergirl.
Yeah. Okay.
And even then, I had to literally sit myself down thinking,
you're committed.
Should I give up the Supergirl because I'm really not too far in? I guess I could drop the series and go over to the Muppets. On the other hand, seeing the good, live action Supergirl would be good, but Muppets are Muppets, man. It's like I really had to. It was almost like a coin toss on that one. It was hard to tell, which one to go with. I suppose I won in the end because there's a second season of Supergirl coming out.
I will tell you one other thing. Maybe this isn't again with cable possibly not being an option anymore. I think one of the other considerations that goes into a channel like sticking to its programming for the entire, this is the, Disney Junior channel, sticking to it for the entire 24-hour cycle, is that sometimes it's playing in hospitals or something like that, and kids have to, for whatever reason, are awake late at night, and it's like,
they couldn't appreciate the Muppets? Well,
they probably could, but it's also can you imagine being a parent for some reason you're stuck in a place and the kids have nowhere to go.
Why, just earlier this week I happened to spend 4 hours at a Canadian Tire because I was getting the vehicle maintenance stuff done up there, and there was really no place to go but in the waiting room. And what did they give me? The remote control to their TV. And what station did we keep it at for 4 hours? Disney Junior.
Yeah, for the kid. So you can imagine, that's just getting your car repaired. But you can imagine if you were in the hospital or who knows what else. Yeah. Could be other situations where the kid is for some reason awake late at night or can't. Yeah, and then so it's
the kid's up late 6 or a thing.
Yeah,
sitting down on the couch as the kid's nursing a bellyache from bad pork.
Sure, and historically, it's been if you're up that late with a kid, you're just SOL for children's programming because nobody would show it because they're no kids are going to watch.
It's not Saturday morning. What do you want for us kids shows on not Saturday morning?
But in the world where every channel is specialized, it's I need something. I need some kids content. Where am I going to find it? Oh, Treehouse or the Disney Junior or whatever, which is 24/7 has kids programming, even though there's very unlikely to be kids. But our population is so large now, and we share a time zone with LA, which has an even larger population. So chances are somebody somewhere has some situation where for some reason they need that channel. I don't know. Of course, yeah. I'm talking about streaming sort of threatening cable because I think at some point streaming is going to come into the point where if you need kids programming, you just stream it. So, but yeah,
I'd like it if they had a randomization, you could make your own playlist sort of thing.
That'd be kind of cool. Yeah.
That would be nice. But yes, I read the news story about the Muppets getting not getting renewed. They did make a good show of it, where it'd be Fozzie was quite happy. Oh boy, yeah, the second season's going to be twice as good as the first season and all that stuff. And then Kermit had to tell him because that's how they did the announcement was.
So they knew
with the Muppets, yeah. So they made a little thing of it where Kermit told Fozzie there wasn't going to be a second season. They weren't picked up for it, and Fozzie was like, "No, how am I going to afford it? I just bought myself, a rubber chicken coop. How am I going to feed all my new rubber chickens?"
Oh, so sad.
Yeah, yeah. At least they went out having a little bit of fun with the fact that they didn't get renewed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it still strikes me as like there's not enough room in 500 channels in this modern culture for a little bit of Muppets.
Well, I'll say one other thing though about this. I mean, you painted. I mean, I'm sad that it didn't continue, but at the same time, it feels sadder because of the Muppets. But the fact is, most TV shows, never get a season, never get one season, barely get a pilot.
Hey, Supergirl was not even certain it would get the full first season, and they got picked up for it, and then apparently they got picked up for a second.
Exactly. So if you put the Muppets up against all those other shows, it's not surprising that it's the Muppets just another show.
Have you seen all those other shows?
I mean, no, they're not.
There's a lot of stuff I have no desire to.
Yeah, they're not great. But I mean, Muppets is maybe sort of hits closer to your demographic or who you are. I don't know.
Niche.
Yeah, for some reason it strikes a chord with you, but it might not with everybody.
Well, tough luck for them. I've had to endure decades now, literally decades, of this horrible thing called reality television.
Yeah.
I don't care if America's Got Talent. I don't want to know who the next idol is. I don't care who's on what survival. The only survival...
Those three shows I actually really like.
The only
reality
survival program thing I've ever liked was the one I just found out about, the Total Drama series. I actually found that to be quite entertaining.
Yeah.
Every other one has just been absolutely horrible to sit through. I would rather go back to high school and sit through the bad productions we had to watch of my friends and schoolmates.
Yeah.
And I really did not want to do that the first time.
Well, I mean...
Reality TV is a horrible, horrible thing.
I
have to endure that, then you guys have to endure the wonderful Muppets. Come on, it's a give and take process.
I kind of like reality TV. I don't watch a lot of it, but when I do watch it, I will not pretend to hate
except
it.
Except for Mythbusters, they technically qualify as reality TV too. But they're a better reality TV. If I have to endure all those damn pickers and garbage stuff and all the hoarders and all that, then you guys got to watch a little bit of Muppets with me.
Well, and people
watch
did.
Watch me hoard my nostalgia.
We did, and I didn't.
Those pickers have gotten a lot more than one season.
I wish I had. In fact, at some point I probably will either, iTunes it or DVD it or whatever I got to do.
We'll see if we can find it on
Netflix.
syndication here. You can watch it when you come over.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, that's the one part of the news. The other news, the Muppets canceled was the sad part. This is going to be the infuriating part. I'll just come out and say it. Apparently, Captain America was a secret, deep cover hydra agent the entire time.
Oh,
the last 70 years or so. He's been a secret deep cover hydra agent all along.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like a dumb... I mean, I shouldn't judge because I haven't read the story, so maybe it's a great story. But yeah, it seems like a bad move to sort of say everything you knew was wrong. Like, you can sometimes do that, but I mean, I think it's... Yeah, everything you knew was wrong.
It's pretty good when it's set up that way. Roseblood was his sled all along. Da da da. So it's like the answer finally comes out. Or like who was it that did the crimes? It was him. So I think that's good to know. And the twist has to be built in. And no, that's not actually how it was for Captain America. Captain America was a way to help show the horrors of the Nazi stuff while still presenting a fun, clean thing that all people in the family could enjoy. And the guys who created it wound up getting death threats from the Nazi sympathizers of America.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of people that were pro-Nazi party until they realized exactly how bad the Nazi party was actually being. Before war was declared, there was something like an 80% American approval rating of the Nazi Party in Germany. They're doing all the right things.
Yeah.
So these guys wound up saying hey, no, this Nazi Party is doing some horrible stuff, and we should have a comic that shows against it and rally the American forces of justice and liberty to crush this horrible regime. And then they wound up getting death threats. And now they're saying, like, no, he was always a secret Nazi, because Hydra is a Nazi thing, right?
Okay, so Hydra is like kind of a terrorist Nazi, neo-Nazi organization?
No, they are
right-wing?
literally still the Nazis. Like, his main villain is the Red Skull, who is actually a Nazi. Although, for the last couple of years, they've had him being effectively like Trump. And I gotta say, this writer, this Spencer guy, Nick Spencer, when he took over the series, I think it was late 2014 when he originally pitched the idea for Captain America being a Nazi. And they're like, yeah, we'll feed in on that one. He took what was in the top 10 for comic sales monthly, and he bottomed that down towards the 40s and 50s for sales. So his writing and his storylines have plummeted the brand in the last couple of years.
Well, okay.
A lot of people have argued that it's okay to be contemporary, especially when you're dealing with something like Captain America. The first issue had him punching Hitler. So clearly, like he's a part of this is happening now.
Yeah.
But should you really be repurposing someone like the Red Skull and to have him effectively be the new Trump for the Marvel universe? Like this kind of feels back to the Muppets sort of thing, where it was like, do you really need to have the Muppets, like be the same person all the time? Can't you get a new Muppet in? Do you keep having to use the Red Skull? Couldn't you have a new villain in, being very Trump-like, but not have to repurpose the Red Skull for this?
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of like there is a strain in this that I like, and that is sort of I don't entirely. How do I put this?
You want to hear some other secret stuff?
Wait, what? Okay.
This would be like saying that a young Bruce Wayne shot both his parents in the alley.
Okay.
It's that sort of twist that completely undermines the character. I see. There's the internet's having a lot of fun with this sort of thing. I saw one with Captain Crunch going, "Hail Soggies," where it's like he was a secret Soggy sympathizer all along.
Yeah, but you hear this sometimes from sort of radical groups and hippies and stuff who are saying that, hey man, Captain America is sort of just another fascist. He's just a fascist on the other side, although apparently was with them somehow, even though he was fighting against them.
He was deep cover. You gotta keep your cover, man.
It's this sort of. I mean, you said we didn't have a conspiracy notion this week, but there's this idea that of sort of the players behind the scenes sort of controlling this both sides of the conflict, and it's really all about sort of the military-industrial complex taking over and controlling the people, and therefore they have an interest in sort of having these sort of very public heroes fighting against. But ultimately, yeah, they're both fighting against each other.
Well, that's the thing. If it was truly the military-industrial complex, what they could have done is, instead of having it be a specific person, they could have shown the benefits of the advantages of the more increased cost for body armor. I believe it was something like less than $200 to outfit a soldier in World War II. It's here's your metal helmet, here's your boots, have some spats, here's a weapon, go march the trenches. Whereas now I believe it costs about $20,000 to outfit a soldier. The helmet's no longer like a steel thing. It's a nice little light Kevlar. More cost to the outfit, and all that sort of thing. But this increased cost has led to a much better ratio of injury to death. During World War II, if you were injured, you're pretty much going to get killed, because you're aside from your metal helmet and your not metal, bulletproof, shoes, you are going to get hit with that bullet. Whereas now with the new modern deflection stuff and the better system set up, so you have better intel, so you don't wind up doing friendly fire and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
You wind up getting, I think right now it's sitting at a 12-to-1 ratio, where for every 12 soldiers wounded, one will die in the line of combat, as opposed to the 1-to-1 ratio it was back when it was less than $200 per person.
Okay, and what is your point?
So if it was truly the military-industrial complex, wanting to show how awesome everything is and get people on their side, instead of showing a particular person to act as a mascot, should they be showing the advances in the technology and have people say, yes, I want all of our soldiers to have this wonderful new, defensive gear that allows them to know what's around the corner thanks to the total information awareness system, and, and they're orbiting, satellites to get, the ground control and the air supremacy, and we got to have, the good stuff so they can go running around and, after the bad guys doing this stuff without getting fatigued because they're wearing 200 pounds of armor on themselves.
So, well, maybe, but also
more towards Nerf. You want to sell the gun. There's no Nerf mascot kid, but you do want to sell those Nerf weapons. Oh man, those Nerf weapons are cool.
So you're saying that Captain America doesn't use enough equipment to justify that?
So if
he never uses tanks or planes or anything?
Occasionally, but not very frequently. It's mostly the shield and the body armor. The body armor does get upgrades as time goes on. It's no longer that chainmail sort of mesh style he used to wear once upon a time. It is the high-end body armor stuff that allows him to, just get a bruise from when he gets winged by a bullet as opposed to bleeding.
To me, it makes sense for him, if this is true. It might turn out to be, some sort of false story or something. Man, this better
be something like mind
twist.
Control or alternate universe.
But if it turned out to be true that he was, actually a Hydra agent, it kind of makes sense to me because the Nazi ideology has always been about sort of manipulating people and feelings and sort of this gut instinct and being very sort of nationalistic, patriotic, patriarchal, and sort of
well, in this case,
working as I think that's all the things.
In this case, it'd actually be matriarchal because according to the story that they've presented, Captain America's mother wound up, aligning with Hydra, and that he's just taken it up because that's how he was born and raised into.
Yeah, okay. Well, she was working for somebody else.
No, it wasn't like she was working for them. It's like they were handing out pamphlets, concerned citizens come to the Hydra meeting for, cultural preservation. Yeah. That's the big thing that they're going right now is, the Red Skulls, oh, I've been over to Europe and what do I see? An invasion and they're invading and they're attacking your ideals and your sense of history and all that, and all you can do is say sorry, otherwise you look like a bigot. Oh, doing his whole Trump sort of spiel. In this case it was Hydra is just a concerned society of making sure that society stays on the right course, that Captain America's mother, Mama America, fell into league with, and then he was just always born and raised on that, and so he goes in for it because that's just how it's always been.
And in his many decades of service, he never sort of questioned it, never
questioned the Hydra ideal.
No, that part
never broke his cover. Despite the fact that at one point in time he did get his hands on the Cosmic Cube, which is basically a wishing engine.
Yeah.
And doesn't break cover to, Hydra Nazi Earth, wah, now. He didn't break cover then.
Yeah, I think, in order to make this story make sense, you'd have to add, again, conspiracy-wise, I think it's possible to throw in conspiracy details and make it work. But you got to throw in something must have been hanging over his head at that time, or there must have been a reason why he didn't realize the error of his ways or anything like that, or
with all that he's seen over the many, many decades of his life.
And he's the whole time he's preaching sort of these American ideals, like this sort of idea, like anti-Nazi. We're about freedom. We're about
truth and liberty and American apple pie,
tolerance, and Captain America's all about tolerance and diversity too, right?
Given the amount of culture shock he had to endure when he popped back out of the capsicle, I believe is what Tony Stark called it. He had to be pretty darn tolerant to just accept these changes and not get angry and start ranting like an old man on some lawns.
Yeah, so and he preaches these things, and he tells little kids how to grow up and be good.
When Captain America was first out and about, if you had a known atheist around a school, they could get arrested for that. having an atheist near a school was an arrestable offense. The same way like a pedophile, being near a school would be like a an arrestable offense. Like, you're a child molester. Like what are you doing hanging around this school? I gotta bust your ass and send you back to prison, buddy.
Yeah.
It's like, you're an atheist? Not around here. This is a school. Off you go to jail.
Yeah, because I'm on board with
the marriage I have with my wife would have been illegal back when Captain America was running his first run.
Yeah, because in the 60s and 70s we had a protest movement, and we had hippies, and we had punks, and they taught us that the fascists are sort of, sometimes they're on both sides. Sometimes there's fascists in America.
How about this? What if they stop doing Captain America as a Hydra agent and everyone just forgets it? Sorry, it was a mistake. We'll just please ignore this. It never happened. And instead, Captain America recruits a team of elite operatives that each represent the eras upon which he was missing. So you get like a punk rock guy, and you get like hippie guy, and you get all that fun stuff. You get, I don't know, even like an 80s, I suppose, like slick-haired executive sort of thing going in there. And you can just do all the stuff, for all the eras. It's because he represents like the 40s. And so he gets with them the people that represent the other eras of what it was like to be an American in that time.
But our listeners can't see, but you're clenching your fists and making a superhero gestures.
Yes. Well, because it's a superhero comic. They fight for the American way of freedom and liberty as they all perceive it. So Captain America isn't like the end-all be-all for what qualifies as the American ideal. He's just like the head of the little American organization.
Okay. Yeah, but
does that sound like a better story for you, that he was a Nazi all along?
It sounds like I'm fine with. I'll read both. Well, I won't actually read these stories. But
Scans daily.
These stories are probably not like they don't bother me in particular. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's a story. That's your take on it.
I find it to be a bad story in that it undermines the fundamental nature of the character.
And I do not care about the fundamental. I mean, okay, I guess if it's like, if the story doesn't make sense now because the character has conflicting origins, basically.
Well, it's not even conflicting origins.
How does this character even exist? Okay. But it doesn't bother me that it's, all of that history of, because I don't care about the history of Captain America. I haven't read that. I mean, I've read some, like, little, synopsises and stuff, but not the actual books.
I won't lie, I haven't read all his stuff either.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff I had to get from, like, amalgamated universes that rehash it. But it changes the nature of who the character is. He's not what kind of hero is Captain America? He is the patriotic hero. It's like, no, he's really a subversive covert agent.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm on board with it. I mean, I don't believe it. I don't have to. Maybe I believe it, but I'm not saying I think that's definitely the interpretation of Captain America. But I like having the idea of, what if everything you thought you believed and thought was valuable, like, what if it's on its head? Like, I want to be able to examine that and say, what if? That's what comics are for. Fine.
That's why they have alternative universes. You don't do it in Marvel 616.
Every comic universe is an alternate universe. This universe is the real universe. Comic books universes are alternate.
That's exactly what they say in the Marvel 616 too. But no, that's the thing, is that there's a sense of continuity. Where if you want to keep the same Captain America for all the stories, and link them all together, it's in one continuity.
Yeah.
And then if you wind up, effectively, retconning it so that he was a secret Nazi agent, that changes not just his series of adventures that's been going on, but also the interactions he's had with other people and what that means for all the other stuff. It's like those old advertisements you saw about, safe sex back in high school. If you have unprotected sex with a person, you're having unprotected sex with every other person they've ever had sex with. If you're retconning Captain America's history to be like a Nazi, you're retroactively, changing the continuity of every person he's had, interactions with before.
Yeah, which is, I like that because it maybe will inspire people to go back and read those old books and to sort of get a new light on it and say, oh, well, add some conspiracy theory details into it, and you get a whole new reading of all those old books. So I think that's kind of actually a good thing.
I don't think it's going to pan out that way.
Well, why? Because readies are idiots?
No, because the story wasn't set up for him to have been a Hydra agent under deep cover all along. Like, before, this whole thing came up for Captain America, he'd spent a few years as what they called Old Cap. The super soldier serum had burnt itself out, and oh no, now he's an old person. And he was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was, you replaced Nick Fury, he was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, isn't that a good time to start doing your, pro Hydra operative stuff? Or no, you got to keep up your deep cover. You're the head of one of the best, anti-Hydra, personnel things ever.
I'm going to agree with you that there are a lot of holes in this. I'm going to agree with you that this is a very difficult thing to sell.
And that's why the third act twist in this sort of case has to be done from the beginning, not just from late 2014. It has to be set up throughout the entire time. I'm
going to say it just has to, because we talk all the time about, inventing conspiracy theories. Like, how do you make it work? Like, what can you add to the story to make it fit, and what details don't, is there a vast conspiracy? So you can do this, I think. Like, you can create a vast conspiracy of, this reason, this is why he couldn't come out at that time, because too many people knew, or he was trying to...
When he held the Infinity Gauntlet, why did he not come out?
You could come up with a reason.
It's the Infinity Gauntlet, man.
And
he had the Cosmic Cube. Why didn't he come on out? Oh, yeah, Hail Hydra. Do you know how bad of a bomb that would have been? He's like, okay, yeah. They finally, got the Cosmic Cube. Captain America holds it in his hand. Hail Hydra. Boom! Boom, man. You can't drop enough bombs to match the bomb that one would have been right then and there.
Yeah, that
instead, what they save it for is him pushing a guy out of a helicopter, and just before one of I think it's Union Jack or one of the other pro patriotic heroes, you get bound and gagged, pushes him out. Hail Hydra.
Okay, a couple things and I think I sort of mentioned this already, but don't necessarily believe. They might be leading you down this thing that, Captain America was a Hydra agent all along.
That's what they're saying. That's what they're coming out in the news press stuff.
But it could be a double bluff. It could be, no, actually now he's being, brainwashed, and now things are being manipulated to make it look like he was with Hydra. But if you actually look at all the facts, no, he actually wasn't. This is some new plot, maybe the Red Skull or some villain. Or
I think the Red Skull does have psychic powers now.
Yeah, it could be. It could be psychic.
I have to double check that.
Could be implanting memories in the entire planet or something like that. It could be that big of a
something
fake
that
out.
Say cube of cosmic power might be able to do.
It could be. That could be the explanation. But another thing that could happen is you don't have to take every story as canon. It might turn out that that story didn't actually happen the way it was written in the comic books, because the people who recounted it, had an agenda to push. Maybe he didn't actually hold the Infinity Gauntlet.
That's the thing. If you start saying that it's not how it actually went, when they keep referring to it as that's how it went because I was there and I saw it happen, you start applying unreliable narrator to every story that's ever been, and then there's no continuity at all.
Yeah,
it's a continuity cancer, and then everything breaks down.
Well, you should treat the thing as not
and then why
necessarily...
bother having Captain America for the next issue? Why not come up with a patriotic hero number 142?
No, I think you can you can still it's a work. This is how fiction kind of has to work. Is that it's going to be a little bit imperfective. There's always going to be inconsistencies, and we've always dealt with this in comic books. This is a really big one, but we've always had how does that doesn't fit if he actually was there and he's saying he's eyewitness there and he was actually there, how does this fit? And in comic books we have this great option of psychic powers and false memories, and we switch to an alternate universe for a few little while. How do we know this is the same universe even?
That's the thing. It's it might wind up being it, but that's what they're saying in the news stories that Marvel is releasing. It's not just. Did you see the final panel of the Captain America issue number 1? Where he says Hail Hydra. It's no. Marvel releases press news.
Yeah, but no.
And in which case, if they're just doing it like, oh yeah, by the way, we told you this, but it's really not that at all, then why does anybody trust any Marvel news coming out? They run the risk of losing.
You shouldn't. No, this is something that comic book properties can and have done, is they can release a story. Oh, we're killing Superman. Oh, he comes back.
Of course he comes back. This is too lucrative to keep dead forever.
We're killing
Wolverine
Batman.
will come back.
We're killing...
They were going to
do this all the time.
They were going to kill him off permanently, Batman.
Yeah.
His sales were rather low. Things were going pretty bad. And they were thinking about killing him off permanently. Like, permanently. And then a little thing called Adam West happened. And sales took off again. And so they decided, well, maybe we won't kill him forever. Maybe we won't even kill him at all right now. Maybe we'll just keep making stories, entertaining stuff for him.
So this is the other thing I'll tell you, again, on conspiracy theories. Don't trust what you see in the news, especially from like a company that's interested in, drumming up controversy. And maybe they failed at it because, as you say, the sales plummeted after this news.
No, the sales for this writer have been bad for about a year and a half now.
Well, that might explain why they're trying to go in a new direction. They're trying to...
No, this is the direction he posited in the start of his run at late 2014, according to the news stories and the reviews and the interviews they've been doing about this.
Yeah.
Like his plan was, what if Captain America is really a hydra deep cover agent? And like, okay, yeah, go with it. And then sales have been bad, and they're going to keep on trucking through the swamp, man. They're not going to stop.
And that's fine. Like, sometimes companies make bad decisions. Sometimes the guy will, like,
This is Marvel, the House of One More Day, and the Clone Saga. I guess it's finally a nice, refreshing taste that the bad story doesn't involve Spider-Man this time around.
Can I ask you this, do you feel, like, deeply invested in Captain America? Like, do you feel like this is important?
I do believe, on principle, that every character should be true to themselves.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to see Batman, going down like the middle of the street in the daytime, like throwing out rose petals and like skipping around, la-di-da. I don't want to see a grimdark Superman snapping Zod's neck, which is the issue one of the issues I had with the Man of Steel.
But doesn't this kind of often happen, unfortunately, in comic books?
Because they're not getting good enough writers. And if they're going to keep doing this, I'm going to have to step up the bar, become a writer myself, and show them how it's really done.
You should do that.
They're calling me on these bluffs, man.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't want to say, like, you're definitely allowed to criticize, and you're allowed to not like something. And
what if Wolverine started being like a goofball? Just, like wacky like kind of Deadpool cracking humor jokes.
If it was written well, I guess that's what we need.
But would it really be written well when it's done to the character of Wolverine, who's supposed to be like the gritty, sort of lonesome thing who occasionally takes on a youthful sidekick?
I have faith that it would be possible. I'm not saying it's definitely possible, but I'm not saying it's impossible.
I'll grant you that.
Yeah.
But the characters should be true to who they are and who they're presented. And if you just start changing things up like Captain America was a Hydra agent all along, then you undermine the nature of the character, and then what sort of stories can you tell and keep it true? Well, how could he fight for the American way when he's not fighting for the American way? He's really, trying to somehow advance. Like, he has been the worst thing for Hydra since, someone started shooting at a Nazi. And all of a sudden it turns out to be like, no, he was one of you all along. It's like, well, congratulations. He could have helped us out a lot more by doing nothing and sitting in that chair in the corner. Go back there, Steve. You've helped enough. Thank you. They could have taken over the world a half dozen times easily.
I mean, like, how do we know they don't already just, sort of want some billionaires secretly, in with them, and they're just basically already taking over the world? And just playing around with, trying to keep the people fooled with a theatrical battle of Captain America versus Hydra when it's just their own little toys. Like, they're the billionaires trying to keep the rest of us in the dark.
It could be even better if instead of Captain America being in on it, he thinks he's fighting the good fight when it's all a distraction. It's the marionette when he should be looking at the puppeteer.
Yeah.
And it turns out that he's like a Pinocchio on strings. He thinks he's a real boy, but no, he's still being controlled just as much as any marionette on the stage. I would love that sort of story. You don't need to turn him into a Nazi agent. You don't need him to be saying Hail Hydra.
Do we know
Although, I will grant the images I've seen where they've people have decided to redesign the Captain America outfit into a Nazi style hydra emblem in the center instead of the star is looking pretty boss. There has been some good artwork to come out of it, and that's the silver lining. And then again, I'm always a sucker for alternative universe costumes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In the end, I think you're right. I think you have a point. Like, I think this is a very weird direction to take a character that is very established as being sort of a good guy.
What if Peter Parker wasn't really Peter Parker? Peter Parker hasn't been the real Peter Parker since 1985 when he was kidnapped for one issue. What if instead he was secretly replaced with a clone? We'll call him Ben Reilly.
Did that happen?
Yes, that's the clone saga in a nutshell.
Yeah. So this is,
and it's this undermining that if it's not done just right, and where you're doing this continuity change back that applies over like long stretches of time, that could really heavily go wrong. This could be Captain America's clone saga. This could go absolutely poor. And I hate to say it, but right now this is not a character you want to be fiddling with all that heavily. Chris Evans is doing a wonderful job being Captain America in the movies. Shirtless, shirtful outfit or, tank top, whatever he's wearing, it doesn't matter. He's playing a great Captain America, a much better character than he ever was as the Human Torch, I'll say that. Mm-hmm. He is really doing a great bang-up job. And the character's great. It's working for the stories. It's helped fueling out stuff that they've got going on there. Don't mess this up in the comics and ruin the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's where their real money's coming from these days. The money for Marvel is not coming from the comics. The comics are just a little side thing that happens to get a lot of publicity. Like an appendix under some stage lights or thing. The real stuff is going on into the Marvel Cinematic. That's pulling in the big bucks. That's making sure everyone gets a paycheck at the end of every month.
I actually am interested. Like, maybe this makes me an anti-comic book fan, or a bad guy.
I think a story where it turns out that he is a Hydra agent all along would be a great story for another comic universe.
Yeah.
Where like Marvel, we'll say universe 2345.
But
I don't know if that's real.
as a person who's writerly inclined, although not a writer myself, I can see the attraction of it's there's like stars in your eyes when you're like, I can reinvent this entire character and rewrite their entire history. All I need is a crack at it. I'll just go and see what if, and just rewrite that whole And I think that's very tempting as a writer, and it's hubristic.
That's the thing. It doesn't necessarily always go bad. Wolverine's original story was that he was a highly mutated Wolverine from the High Evolutionary. Mm-hmm. He was never actually supposed to be a mutant human. He was a mutant Wolverine. And so, actually making it, no, what if he's just actually a mutant with a healing factor, and the adamantium comes from a Weapon X program, an offshoot of the Super Soldier program. And that, I think, wound up being a lot better than, no, you are a very humanized Wolverine.
Yeah, so it's risky, but you never know. It might.
There could be better payoffs.
Yeah, and also I don't like to take any, especially with comic books. Don't necessarily take everything as canon. Everything can be different.
My preference would be fill in the blanks or add more rather than trying to retcon what already is. There is a story that has never been published, but a lot of the writers wanted to do it. They've never gotten permission to do, wherein it is revealed that Wolverine is Hank McCoy, Beast's biological father. Mrs. McCoy wound up having an affair with Logan back in the day, and the offspring was Hank McCoy, the Beast. And I think, does that change who Hank McCoy is? No, it does kind of explain their identical hairstyles. Like, apparently that's a genetic thing. As well as, I suppose, their hairy nature. And, like, Beast has some... He's not as good at regenerating, but he does heal a lot quicker than the average person.
Mm-hmm.
So it does explain away some of his powers, but does it change who Beast is at any fundamental level? No, it doesn't. It keeps Beast as Beast, but does add a whole new layer in, finding out that the guy he's been working with, and sometimes against when he goes a little berserker rage, is his biological dad. In addition to all the craziness of being a mutant, that started off with, extra large hands and feet, and then, coating himself out with fur and all that stuff, and then eventually looking like a cat sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It winds up being, in addition to all that, by the way, your parents had an affair, there was an extramarital affair, going on. Your dad is not your dad. The guy who raised you, well, I guess the guy who raised you is your dad, but he's not your biological father. It's this guy right next to you here. Wow. That's a great bomb. That's a great story to tell. And you can do a lot of stuff about, like, what it means to, pay up for your the person you be. Wolverine has not always been the greatest guy. He does wind up going around, and occasionally ruining the, marriage by, fooling around with a lady and not giving a darn. He's been in some dark periods in his life. And so you could wind up telling some great stories about the nature of what it means to be this kind of person, a dad that was never actually there. What kind of dad would he have been if he had been there? Sort of thing. And how does that change the dynamic of these two well-established, members of the X-Men?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the bigger and more dramatic a change you make, the more you like. Because what this is doing is it's controversy, and it gets people talking, and because like an issue that has had a series that has had lower sales for a while. If you sort of change the entire universe around, put a huge twist on it. Same thing with killing a major character, killing Superman. You release a press release. You say this is what we're doing, and it gets people talking. People can come out very negatively. I'm sure they did on the death of Batman and Superman. The people are like, you can't kill these characters. They're heroes. They're our icons. But
they're not the icons you're buying every month.
That's true. But that anger and pushback in turn generates attention, which in turn generates sales and new readers.
But it doesn't, it's been proven not to last. It doesn't keep the new readers in there.
And maybe do it again. That's the other thing. We might have, a whole arc where it turns out, Captain America's with Hydra this whole time. And then, a couple, 2-3 years down the road, they might be like, okay, new twist. He was actually a double agent the whole time.
Triple agent. Well, that's the thing. Who in Hydra is going to believe that Captain America is one of them unless they knew about this beforehand? What Hydra agent is going to just come along here, Captain America. We'll show you all the stuff we're doing now that you're one of us.
I don't have the sense though that Hydra. I mean, they work together, but I don't have the sense that they're all buddy. All best friends and trust each other implicitly.
Not the amount of times he's been throwing his shield at their heads.
I mean, they're
allies, apparently.
You're allowed to hate your ally. Well, if you're the bad guy, if you're Nazis, you're kind of I mean, do you think the Nazis trusted each other? Didn't Hitler throw a guy out of a helicopter or something like that? I mean,
what every Tuesday just for the fun of it, or a one-time deal?
Actually, Hitler often had he had officer purges. He would just execute his
to be fair,
his own government.
What I've seen of a lot of his guys, they were pretty nuts, and that was a very good thing for him to have done. It's you are too crazy, you are too crazy, you are too crazy. Purge, purge, purge.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine if you throw if it turns out that Captain America was a bad guy the whole time, you can imagine how Nazis would deal with that. It'd be he's technically working for us, but he's unpredictable, and let's keep him at arm's length.
He's kept us from taking over the world a dozen times.
Well, that too.
But apparently he's one of us.
Yeah.
We don't need any more you, Captain America. You've done enough. We get another one, and you will be wiped out of existence. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, but so you can overwrite this by some. If everything so far can be overwritten by this particular change, then this too can also be overwritten by further editing and so forth, making it even more convoluted spider web of mess.
And that's what caused the Clone Saga to become so bad. It initially had good sales. It was well received as a very interesting story. And then editorial mandate said, no, you can't end it now. We have this thing you got to put in here, and then it got stretched out, and then it couldn't end for years, and it just dragged on and got more convoluted and dragged on.
And then they do resets or alternate universes and say, okay,
no, it's never been reset.
Well, not this one, but other comic book franchises will do a reset, and they'll be like, okay, New 52, or something like that, or
and that's the thing, is like
Infinite Crisis.
You keep doing these resets, and then it just doesn't matter for the whole continuity you build up.
I feel like it never really has. I think it's
every 5 years you reset the universe, and then retell some of the same stories over again.
I think comic book readers are kind of fooling themselves if they think they can, have a consistent universe.
I will grant you on that, unless you have like a very dedicated set of long-term writers to tell these stories. You will encounter errors, and continuity will become at least somewhat problematic. I will grant you that, definitely.
And I hope that, like, I don't want to take the joy out of, because I guess what the problem comic book readers have is they get invested in these properties, and they learn, all these details and the history, and they've collected all of this stuff, so they know a lot about it. And then I don't know if that makes it more fun for them and more enjoyable to feel like they're an expert on the world and know everything about it.
If they like something and they're knowledgeable about it, then yes, there is satisfaction and joy achieved from it.
Yeah, so I can see, getting something thrown in like that. Oh, changes everything. I don't know. It's not. I can see how it wouldn't be pleasant, but I also like things being shaken up a little bit.
And don't get me wrong, I dig that too, but I don't think it needs to be shaken up that much, that deeply.
Okay. Yeah.
What if it turns out that like Dr. Erskine, the guy who was doing the thing, was actually, a Hydra sympathizer, and his work for the American government was just like, hey, you guys don't need to pay me to do this, because these guys will pay me to do it, and then I'll give you guys the formula once I'm done. So he was planning on turning coat. I'd be okay with Dr. Erskine effectively being like a traitor turncoat the entire time. Mm-hmm. He was working there simply because it's like less resources expended on his side when the enemy can expend the resources to get you the results you want. And so it could have been that Captain America's super soldier serum was always meant to be like der Ubermensch serum.
Yeah.
And thus, what he has pumping in his veins for the hero.
It's the same thing, just in another language, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, but the intent of it was for domination, and that what he's doing is actually counter to what the purpose was supposed to be.
It's like, it's fine to be a Superman, but if you be an Ubermensch, that's a problem.
Well, no,
that's evil.
It was in this case, it would be, what if the super soldier serum was never meant to be for fighting for American freedom and all the values that we hold dear. It was supposed to be a tool of tyranny to create der Führer's master race by any means necessary. And so every time he succeeds at doing something, he's only strengthening the ideal of der Ubermensch. And the pure race. Because let's face it, I mean, he has like a blonde-haired, like Aryan, like wonder mark of humanity, right?
Yeah.
And so what if it turns out that, he was, in fact, every time he does something good, he's like a propaganda tool for, the Aryan ideals of the Nazi, mentality. Wouldn't that doesn't change who he is, but it does add a nice little bitter aftertaste every time he succeeds. Mm-hmm. They wind up utilizing him, and the image of him, like, look how great this is. That's why we espouse these ideals. If you're with Hydra, then you will help espouse these ideals, and you too may become another Captain America as soon as we figure out that last part of the serum. So, it doesn't need to be shaken so badly that he himself is like being a secret agent the entire time. You can change stuff around him and make it suspect. I remember the Fantastic Four having a great series where what was twisted around was apparently the whole rocket going up into space, getting bombarded by cosmic rays, changing them, was done on purpose. And the whole thing was designed to make them that way because, Mr. Fantastic saw a future where the powers like theirs would be needed. And so the rocket was actually set up to collect, funnel, and concentrate the cosmic rays that bombarded them. And that caused a lot of internal friction. If it happens by accident, sure, but what if it happened by design, again, without even asking your permission?
Well, okay. One other thing that we didn't consider, or I don't know if we talked about, but couldn't he just be a sleeper cell or something, or have like a chip?
No, apparently he was consciously aware the entire time.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
They say it's definitely not psychic control or sleeper cell or anything.
They're
like
saying he is and always was a Hydra agent.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm with you. I find it hard to believe.
If it was him, like being mind controlled,
I'm interested to find out the explanation. So maybe
there better be one heck of a good explanation. I'll say that.
All right.
But yes, we have gone just a little bit over time, but I would like to give a little review that we have planned up. So we do have a little review, a little movie review, starring my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you say hello?
Hello.
And what movie did we watch this week?
Inside Out.
Ah, and did you like this movie?
Yeah, it was so scary.
It was a scary movie. Oh, what made it so scary?
You.
I made it scary?
Uh-huh.
Oh, because you know what I found scary?
Mm-hmm.
The potential for a young lady to never feel happiness again. I don't know if does this count as a spoiler if I reveal a part of the plot?
I'll put a spoiler alert. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
All right. The characters, I guess mental, emotional personality traits or whatever, of joy and sorrow wind up getting sucked out of the head office and into like long-term memory and other psychological constructs of the human brain. And without them there at the head office, they cannot exert any of their emotional influence over the main character. And so she finds herself unable to experience either true sorrow or true joy, and relieving her with only fear, anger, and disgust as her emotional range, as she has to come to terms with the moving to a new place, leaving everything behind, and such and so forth. And so, what did you like most about this movie, Zoe?
Joy.
You like Joy? She was a really good character?
Yeah.
Oh. What about Anger?
I don't know.
Was he a good guy or no? Was he boring?
Yes.
Oh. And what about, was there any other characters you liked, or were the rest of them all boring?
That's Sadness.
Yeah. Did you like Sadness?
Yeah.
She was a good character despite the fact she was always sad?
Yeah.
Oh. And so would you give this 2 stars up, 2 thumbs down? How many reviews? You can't see that out there, folks, but that was 2 thumbs up in the air, quickly, hastily thrown out. So 2 thumbs up?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And do you recommend that everybody see this, or only some people see it, or who should see this?
Like, thumbs down.
No, don't give it thumbs down. You already gave it thumbs up. So do you recommend everyone see this?
Yeah.
Okay. And who would benefit the most from seeing this? Young people? Old people?
No.
Who should definitely see this right away? Young people?
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right. Thank you, Zozo. That was a wonderful movie review. Can you say goodbye to all the folks out there?
Bye.
Okay.
Okay, so how can people get a hold of us, Josh?
Email us, thesimulationist@gmail.com is a good way. Also, we have a Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist. You can comment on there. It shows up on the left-hand side of the page. Anyways, yeah, you can talk with other listeners, or you can comment on this episode or any past episode there. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. We're on iTunes, or on YouTube for that matter, youtube.com/thesimulationist. You can comment on our YouTube channel. Also, you can leave reviews on our iTunes. Someone got to grab that. It's probably already a thing. iTunes channel. Leave a review, and of course, as many stars as you feel like. You can subscribe on other podcasters, including Stitcher, and probably a couple others. And tell a friend in real life all about the Simulationist and how great this podcast is.
If they know nothing about Captain Hydra, let them know.
Yeah, good conversation. All right, I've been Josh Levin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
So